Guys, so after that fishing adventure, let's get some notes for point, slope, form. Again, easy to remember what this form is good for because you need a point and a slope. Okay. So here's the formula. You don't need to write it down because it's on your note page, but it's y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So just as a review, x1, y1, that's just any point on the line. Any point will work, seriously. Any point. And m is still the slope. So that's why it's called point slope form. You have a point and you have a slope. If you know of any point on the line in the slope, it works. And you can kind of rationalize this. Like, let's say, really similar to that fishing problem we looked at first. Let's say after 6 months of saving money, you have $125 in your bank account. And you know that you've been saving $10 a month, right? Well, after 6 months, you would think you have how much money? 60. But what that means then, so here's a point, right? 6 months, $125, $10 a month. You would probably be able to pretty well use your intuition to say, well, $10 a month only gets me to 60. There must be 65 more dollars that was in the account to start, right? So we're going to look to streamline this whole idea of we have a point and we have a slope, because sometimes the intuition is there's going to be bigger numbers. The slope isn't going to be as nice to work with, right? Like a 2/3 or something. So we're going to get a formula way to mess with this. So let's look at number 1 in your notes when you're given a slope and a point. So on number 1, we know our line goes through point 212 and it has a slope of 4, which means, you could do stuff. Slope of 4 means up 4, right 1. So you could add 4, add 1, and you have a second point, 316, or you could try to get that down to 0 to get an intercept. It's not going to work super nice and efficient. What will work super nice and efficient is the point slope formula. So I'm going to call my point, any point you want to use, just x1, y1. And so to plug it into the formula, y minus y1, which is 12, equals my slope of 4, x minus x1. So, depending what you needed to do, usually we're going to get this to be slope-intercept form, though. But you could graph from this already. All you need is a point and a slope to graph. But it's a good strength of point slope form is to end up in slope-intercept form. So here's our goal. Y equals mx plus b. What do we notice about the equation y equals mx plus b? What's isolated?
Y.
Y is isolated. So let's start doing that. I need to get rid of these parentheses first. All right, so I get y minus 12 equals 4x minus 8. Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to add 12 to both sides to get y alone. So I end up with y equals 4x plus 4. So again, I start with the point and the slope. I did not have a y-intercept. Now I do. My y-intercept is 4. You can always test this. What you can do is take your point, substitute it into your line. It better work. So let's do that. What's 4 times 2 plus 4? So I just plugged in x for x. 8 plus 4 is? So when x is 2 is y 12? Yeah, it worked. Cool. Okay, so let's skip down to that bottom left quadrant in your notes. Our line is going to go through, it's going to give you 2 points. And again, I hate when you just try to memorize what I do. If we're trying to get point slope, what 2 things do we need? We need a point and a slope. Do we have a point? Yeah, we have more than enough points. We only need 1. We have 2. Do we have a slope?
No.
Not yet. We have 2 points, though. So what do you think I'm going to do with my 2 points? Find the slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I get a slope of negative 1/2. So this is where you're going to see why I choose to use circles and boxes. My circles for my communication and for my organization. My circles show answers in the work that aren't my final answer. It's like something I need to use again. So now I know my slope and I know points. Does anybody know which point we need to use in the equation? Which one of these? Yeah, the answer is, it doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer. And I'm about to prove that to you. So if I use the first point, I get y minus y1 equals m x minus x. I screwed that up. I mixed up my x's and y's. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. And if I used the second point, I'd get y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. I would choose the second point personally. It just has smaller numbers. I just look to find whichever one works easier. But do you guys see that this is the left point and then this is the right point? I'm going to show you that you get the same answer. So y minus, and you guys just pick one to work on yours to do the algebra. So there you go, guys. I'm just showing it didn't matter which point I used. If I solved for y, I got the same answer. So just look for whichever point you're vibing with. Which one looks easier to you? Like if you looked at number 2 on your notes, I would choose 2, 6 over 4, negative 8 because there's no negative. All right? So not much different than what we did before. Just they don't give you the slope, but you have a skill set where you find the slope first, use any point. Let's jump down to the bottom right quadrant. So they give us, what form is this one already in? Point slope form, right? And so they want us to graph it. How many points do I need to graph something? 2. So do I know a point from point slope form? Heck yeah, I do. It's got a point right in it, and my point is 1, 2. Right? So I just take it from the x1 and the y1. Now what gets a little tricky is minus 2 looks like a negative 2, right? But it's the equation's y minus y1, so the only way to keep that a minus 2 is if your y value was a 2, right? It's a little tricky with the positive negatives. Everybody see where I got my point 1, 2 from my equation? Yeah. And what's my slope? 1, 2. So that's all the information I need to graph it. So there's point 1, 2 right there. And from that point, what do I need to do to get to my next point? Up 1, right 3. Right? Because I have a slope of 1/3. Right? So you were doing a bunch of this in slope-intercept form, right? But we don't have an intercept here. Looks like the intercept's 1, but I don't think it is. It's just close. So let me show you why you would not want to change this one to slope-intercept form. If you distributed and added in slope-intercept form, so the same line, does that look like a very nice y-intercept to try to graph? Nope. So sometimes it's easier to keep it in point slope form, especially to graph, because you already have a point, you already have a slope. That's all you need to graph something. That'll get you your 2 points. All right, guys. That's point slope form. I'm going to have you finish up your notes, the ones we didn't do together. Finish up on your notes. I'll put them on the dot cam. And your homework is assigned to you on Khan Academy. It's point slope form stuff. There are two videos of practice.